All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Week in Italian Startup. So Nick, we are on the closing week of 2025. What are your latest feelings?
Well, the year is going well. I think it has gone well in many ways. So we reached at least 1.4 billion according to my counting in risk capital by Italian startups. We had a strong Q4, a really strong Q4. So nice to close the year with this traction. We still have 1 week to go, more or less.
Yeah.
So maybe someone else will surprise us, but after that, we closing down the year, and we'll see again in January for more news.
I mean, 1.4 is a massive achievement, I think, compared to the past couple of years. So excellent news. We'll see good reporting happening at the beginning of the year. Okay, we had some mega round, but that's pretty much usual. And still, I mean, very interesting progression at least.
And good to know that there's a few rounds were in quite deep tech or strong started with strong technological background, such as the main news from this week.
No, exactly, absolutely. And with that segue, let's dive into that. Fantastic. So let's talk about robotics. So Generative Bionic, humanoid robotics startup raising 70 million in a growth round from CDP Venture Capital, AMD Ventures, Duferco, and next Robo IT and Tether. So, Generative Bionics is essentially focusing, well, first of all, is a spin-off of the Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia, so that's already like a great sort of highlights. Istituto Italiano has been pretty active, and we've seen a few rounds basically led by these kind of companies coming out from the Istituto. So one of the, I would say, most active research institution in Italy, kind of pulling out startups and successful startup that can make rounds. So that's a highlight. The second element I would say is the application that they're planning to do for this robotics. It's going to be industrial, and then with some application also in healthcare and retail. So that's the news that we got. So it's not like a general purpose robot like, people can have seen in the news, doing chores and everything. This has probably some precise use case, and very curious to see which one are those gonna be. So that's pretty interesting actually.
Yeah, I agree. It's very nice to see such a technology, such a startup emerging from Italy. Um, we haven't seen many in this space. But as you mentioned, the IIT is a very strong research institution with a lot of patents and research lines going on. I would love to see more of them in the news because they have a very strong research base. So very good to see the things are moving and more investors are deploying capital in things coming out from there.
Yeah, one also curious element is this idea that they mention of essentially physical AI. So of course, in this kind of when we talk about robotics, we've always seen like deals that actually try in some form to integrate AI. So a big part of this company is actually like training those humanoids to actually interact with reality in some form through AI. And that is interesting because it's, again, a very specific and unique use case, extremely practical and pragmatical. And in a certain sense, I would say, kind of finds the agreement of a lot of diverse investor. If you see this investor pool, any, and then, Duferco, so an industrial partner, a couple of industrial partner, CDP Venture Capital, of course, the big endowment fund for Italy, AMD Ventures, and even Tether. So even like some, crypto that kind of are met in the middle to actually develop something, physical plus AI plus robotics. So very interesting pool, I would say. You know how we're always sensitive to kind of reading between the lines when these kind of syndicates happen. So that's it's pretty unique, I would say.
Yeah, let me take this one step further. I have to praise CDP for this round because they started out with the Robo IT tech transfer program, which was a very smart one because it started at least 2 to 3 years ago. So in a moment when robotics were not so hot, probably on the market, and through the tech transfer program, they actually seeded the initial prototypation phase of generative bionics. Um, and now they're doubling down with the using at least also the artificial intelligence fund that they've been managing since last year, probably, which is a quite large one, specifically aimed at the deeper angles of AI, and AI and physical AI is one of those right now. So that's a multi-year program coming together, and that's super interesting, I would say.
Love it. Absolutely interesting. All right, moving on to another big sort of theme that keeps surfacing like every year, I would say, which is cybersecurity and how cybersecurity is moving, and with the new developments of AI and other sort of agentic workflows. So let's talk about Equixly, agentic AI cybersecurity startup raising 10 million in a Series A from 33N Venture, Alpha Intelligence Capital, JME 360 Capital, and Fondazione Cassa di Risparmio di Firenze. So a couple of things here caught my attention. Well, the first of all, the fact that of course, AI being pervasive and agentic AI being even more pervasive is kind of touching everything cybersecurity. So essentially, the claim of this company is the fact that the testing for cybersecurity protocols is going to be continuous. The old model, my understanding was that it was kind of planned and not continuous. Basically, the new paradigm is really having these agents that are going to keep testing flaws and potential like breaking on a continuous scale. So that's a rethinking of a new and even more secure way to think about cybersecurity. What is your take on this, Nick?
Yeah, I think you got it right. I agree with you. So the point here is that if hostile players are able to leverage something like cloud code, convincing an AI to perform complex attacks, and we know of one that was discovered by the Anthropic researchers, but we don't know how many others are being deployed by hostile actors. But 90% of the work is done by an AI. You can expect these AIs to be deployed in continuous tentatives to perform complex attacks. So not just a continuous burst scan, it's something much more complicated. So one of the obvious answers to this is to continuously monitoring your perimeter for vulnerabilities in even increasingly complex and orchestrated ways.
Yeah.
And Equixly is an answer to this market problem, let's say so. And right now, you need to be constantly on the lookout for problems. You can't just, let's do a pen test a year and let's see whether the infrastructure will hold. Because on the other hand, if you're a technology company, you are deploying stuff every day. You cannot perform a pen test every year.
And let me add an extra ingredient that I know you're gonna like, which is with the new development and diffusion of MCP servers, model context protocols, then which are ways how AI communicate. That's gonna be even worse because essentially, finding a common language, talking between different AIs. These poses heavy security, privacy problems for sure, and we need new solution to actually fix that. Yeah.
Absolutely. If the attacker flies a plane, you cannot contrast it with, with a carriage.
One other element that I thought it was interesting was that I mean, first of all, I think the kind of round and the kind of investor really brings like a very sort of European first flavor. So the idea is that some people from Luxembourg and beyond Italy are investing in the company. So it's a very deliberate syndication of investors. So that's pretty interesting. That basically gathers a few experts in cybersecurity, a few experts in AI. So that's a very interesting pool of investors. On top of that, I think the deployment strategy of this company is UK first, Europe, and then US. So it's a very deliberate plan for scaling, and that's very, very interesting. It really resonates with me because that's what we've been discussing a lot, saying, hey, when you launch a startup, you're a European startup. You're not like an Italian startup. You're not a French startup. You're like European first. Yeah. So that's another great example, I would say.
Yeah, European first and hopefully global leader. I agree with you. 33N is a very strong player in this case. So they are from Portugal, and they have a history of investing in startups that then move into the US in the cybersec vertical. And then we've seen them before this round in Italy, with Exane at least, where they led the Series A, I think. Not
Good
the
point.
latest round, the one from Balderton, but the previous one.
Awesome.
Mm.
So yeah, right. Let's move on to I think what is another very interesting, sort of argument in favor of what we've been discussing, which is how debt financing is actually entering very strongly into early stage companies, venture capital and growth capital in particular. So let's talk about ScalaPay. So basically the European Investment Bank is investing about 70 million in ScalaPay to accelerate technological innovation in Europe using a sort of what they define as a scale-up debt financing. So again, the hybrid model, the new sort of archetype for scaling financing in Europe is like taking shape, and the debt part is really a huge part of it, seems like.
Yeah. So it seems, I would say that it probably depends, of course, from the type of target that they're aiming at. It seems that this basket of money comes from an investment line named TKU, which has at least 70 billion euros of firepower to invest into scale-ups using equity, quasi-equity, debt, any type of instrument in order to support European innovation at scale in 3 years. So 2025, 2026, 2027. 2025 is over, so we have still only 2 years to go. From the news I can read, most of the dry power is still available. So there will be a couple of years of big opportunities for companies that manage to cross the chasm and enter into the scale up phase.
Yeah, I might. And yeah, it's, I mean, honestly, we don't talk about that much yet. So it's a big deal. It's a huge amount of money. Maybe it didn't trickle yet in the different economies as we might, expect. But it's definitely like they're committed, and so I would say next year and the year following that we're gonna see a lot of deals coming from this source in even some different forms. Equity, quasi-equity, debt, growth act, seed equity. Seed debt, I don't know, like what kind of combos they're gonna come up with.
You know what hit me the most in the article, in the press release, they mentioned that in the case of ScalaPay, let's say pre-IPO growth loan. I mean pre-IPO. Oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting, right?
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, bittersweet, I feel, because it's like, okay, it's cool. Maybe it's hinting to some pre-IPO like plans, but at the same time, maybe it's a too much of a wide way to see this kind of debt. I mean, Series A, can it be thought about pre-IPO really? I don't know. Depends when when you're gonna IPO, basically. So, but yeah, it's maybe it shows intention, which is not bad.
3 billion of credit from the article, something like that. And I don't remember whether they drew 3 billion in credit or they had a gross transaction value worth 3 billion. So I don't remember the number, but there was this 3 billion. So not huge compared to Klarna or Affirm. So you're probably right. So the IPO is not behind the corner. But still, when you mention pre-IPO funding, it shouldn't be 10 years away.
Yeah. Unless we have very careless journalism.
If we just threw the pre-IPO words in the article, maybe an IPO will materialize. So I don't know. I don't know for sure.
No, sure. All right, Nick. Just a quick mention to end on a special note. So the space report that Primo put together for the readers of the newsletter, please take a look into that. For all of you looking into the space economy, Primo Ventures did a very interesting deep dive in the current status. So please go and download it in the website. That's very interesting. And with that said, I think I'm gonna see you probably in January at this point.
Yeah, maybe unless something really cool happens in the next few days. In that case, we'll be having Christmas lunch together.